In this video, we're going to go through how to edit audio in Descript. We're going to use EQ, compression, studio sound. We will also take a look at how you can use AI to help you edit your audio. If you want to learn how to use Descript from start to finish, all in the one course, without having to find all the individual videos on YouTube, and you want updates as things happen in Descript too, because they definitely update all the time and we shoot new videos all the time, then you are able to join our Learn Descript course, and there is a link to do that in the description below. Let's get stuck in to the info here. So what I'm going to do is I've got a piece of audio that I recorded in GarageBand already. So I didn't record this inside of Descript, and I'm going to import it into a new session, and we're going to go through some editing features here. What you would normally do then is go to New Project and go to just Audio Project Only. So click on that. I'm going to give this a title. So E140, so this is actually a review that I've done on Audio Socket, and this is the audio version of it. Then I'm going to grab the audio that I recorded, and here it is here as a wave, and I'm actually just going to drag it in like that. It's going to appear, it's going to transcribe straight away. That's fine for me, I want it to do that, so I go speaker name and I put my name in. Auto language, and that's fine. So just hit done. Don't automatically detect speakers. That should be something that, don't get it to do that. You should do that. Okay, so you can see it's transcribing. It normally takes a little bit depending on the actual amount of audio that you're playing with. And while it's doing that, we'll step through a few things. So over on the right is all the aspects of Descript that you can use. So we've got project. That's where all your project files live. We have the AI tools, which we will get to. Properties. Now the properties will depend on what is selected. So in this case, if I select the actual audio down here in the timeline, you can see that the properties for that actually come up. So it's got audio, and it tells me that it's coming in at 60% of the audio that it was recorded in. So it didn't make it 100%. It thinks maybe it's too loud, and it's decided to normalize that volume. We might play with that in a minute. It's also got the audio effects area here, which you can start to add in things like studio sound, dynamics, EQ, and some other creative things, which for a podcaster you wouldn't really use. If it was a podcast or if it was an audiobook, you're not really going to use creative, and you definitely shouldn't use reverb. Okay, so then from there we've got elements, and this is really only something that you would use if you're doing video. So for audio projects you won't use this section. Captions. And again, it's something that if you were playing with video, you would use captions, but for audio, no, there's no reason that you would use any of that because it's not going to be on video. And then stock. Stock, you may use audio as in for music or sound effects. And there is a small number of music sort of options there for you to use within Descript. It's not a huge list, but you can narrow it down as well from doing searching keywords and things like that within there. So now you have project, AI tools, properties, elements, captions, and stock. And you can see over here in this section, we have the actual transcript. And if we go up like this, we can see that we have the audio waveform and we have the captions as they appear based on what the waveform's doing. We have the transcript up here, and this area with the little dots everywhere, that's kind of the other layers. So as we add things in, like music, then the music would go in a layer above the actual timeline section. We've got a zoom in, zoom out over here, so you can zoom in. There's also shortcuts for that, which is Command plus and Command minus. Okay. And we have this one over here, which is select, hand, blade, range, or Y. Now, to be honest, I don't use any of these except for A. And I'll show you why, because we have shortcuts that make it that you don't need to use any of these other things. In fact, it just slows me down to do it like that. On the right here, on the left here, we have the volume. So as it's playing, you need the volume starts triggering. You can see the actual bar as it goes up and down. If it gets too loud, it will start to go red or orange, and then we know, okay, the audio is too loud and we have to do something about that. But that's the audio there. It's telling me what the overall time is. So the length for this particular raw audio is 14 minutes, 17 seconds, etc. And then it gives me a starting point there, depending on where my actual mouse is, see? So it's like 20 seconds, etc. We also have these other little things where we can just go back to the beginning of the composition and the end, which is really handy if you're kind of in the middle or at the end of an edit and you want to quickly get back to the start, you can do that. And you've got these to shuffle through next markers if you were using markers as you were editing. In the middle, we have the record function, the play button, the playback speed, which is something that I certainly use a lot and we use here at Bamby Media. Depending on the client, we can sometimes speed up our editing time because we can speed up the rate at which we're listening to it. If we've been working with a client for a long period of time and we know them really well, we know the way they speak and everything, and they're recording in the same location, we can speed up the way that it sounds for us. It doesn't mean it's sped up at the end. It just means for us, when your playback is changed, it just is easier to kind of get through content quicker. The caveat I will have to that, though, is that the faster you go, the more mistakes you will potentially make if you're not very proficient in editing. Playback speed should be left at 1 until you feel like you're really good, and then you can start to increase the actual playback speed there. So that's that. Then you've also got a split. So this is where you can split clip, and it's also an S. So the S is what I use the most, and we will go through that in a moment. A few other things that you can see here. You can change your view up here. If you want the script, the timeline, like if you want things to be laid out in a different way, then you can change those things. So if we go to timeline and we hide the timeline, then it completely gets rid of the timeline. So if you were only wanting to edit using the transcript, then you could do that. I always want to show the timeline. You can do, showing the editing boundaries. You can untick these things. You can underline, like you can make sure that it's aware that you can underline filler words. So you can see the little blue squiggles. It's showing you that they are filler words. And if you can see that there's a lot of them, then sometimes that might make your edit like a little bit easier to do, which we'll go into because there are some AI functions that you can do to improve that. And then within the timeline, again, you also have, within panels, you can have different properties and you can select things in different ways here. You can see the project. That's all just this. So clicking on these things, you can also kind of do that over here based on what you want it to view. Okay. Yeah, so you can see that. All right. And this is just the normal things, the file, edit, playback. Again, it's not really stuff that you'll need to use too much. I don't really ever click on that stuff. So yeah, you probably wouldn't need to either. And then you've got home that will take you back to all projects. When you look at this just from an audio perspective, it's pretty simple to set up. We've got the waveform down here. This is the full-on timeline. We've got layers above it. We've got the audio in here, which has been transcribed. We have a title, and now we can actually just start to edit. Now, there are a few things that you could do to speed up your edit from the outset by actually using AI tools or Underlord. We will go into Underlord in a separate video because it is a separate whole beast of a thing. And again, if you want access to that, you will need to be within the Learn Descript course because it's not something that we will be going through on the YouTube channel. This will include the prompts that we use here at Bamby Media to help us achieve good results when editing. So if we go to AI tools, then you can see there's all these things you can click on. So you can edit for clarity, you can studio sound, blah, 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 blah. There's all this different stuff. What we want to focus on here is this sound good section. Now, for this particular video, there's not a lot of filler words that I would want to remove. There's on the occasional wouldn't really want to remove, but I can see there's some ers. So let's focus on that then. So if we go to remove filler words, we don't want to go just all filler words because then it's just going to remove everything, all the words. And sometimes I want in there. Sometimes I want is. Sometimes I want, there's a few things that I might want. So I just unselect and then I just go and you can see there's 22 instances of So we're going to click on that and we're going to say, yeah, that's fine. Just remove all, but also I want to say avoid harsh cuts because in the past, if you wanted to remove and that was attached to an and, it would then cut it and it would cut it really abruptly and it would be a waste anyway. You'd have to go back and fix it because it never cut it properly. So we're then going to go remove all and you can see because it's avoided the harsh cuts, it went from 22 down to 13 that it can actually remove successfully. So we're going to go remove all and it has removed all. Okay, so now there are no extra ones in there other than the ones that it didn't want to remove because it felt like that was a bad idea. Okay, so that's that. So that's the kind of first thing. If we go back to the AI tools, we can go into edit for clarity. Now, this is one where it will assess what it thinks you should remove. So like you can see there, remove filler words, digressions, blather, and all the obvious cuts. This tool I haven't found to be super helpful. It seems to cut too much or too little. So it's not really something that I found to be all that successful. You can set the intensity there and you can go low, medium, or heavy, depending on the kind of speaker that you're dealing with. Sometimes it's actually just quicker to do the edit than doing this because a lot of the times you're kind of fixing up a lot of AI's mistakes here. So at this point in time with this tutorial, I don't find the edit for clarity to be that helpful, but in the interest of trying it out, we're going to go a low intensity and don't use AI speech because you won't have that set up yet. And then we just go submit. And it is proposing what it thinks should be removed. Okay, so you can skim through and decide whether you agree with that or not. Okay, so you can see it's got crossed out, but it hasn't actually removed anything yet, right? It's just showing you. And then from there, you can decide, okay, done. If you click done, it's going to remove all of the stuff that it's saying here it wants to remove. The other thing that you can do is then you can actually just go to it and see whether you want to approve that one or reject it. So if you click on that and you press posting on social media, you need, and again, see how it's not really giving you enough for you to be like, hang on, what is that to do with? Do I want that removed? I'm not sure. So this, I don't think I would remove because I'm still part of the same thought. Okay, and again, this one, influencing is still a job. Again, I wouldn't remove that. A bunch of things for them. Finding good music for those videos can be a real pain in the ass. It can be really hard to find. That would be one that I would remove. So, okay, get rid of that. But the problem with that is if we zoom in now, so plus, see how it's actually left some of the thing in here. And finding good music, and it's cut out some of it, but not the whole thing. So when I actually clicked on it, it was still having a bit of a jump in there. The video, and then we spurred out just a bunch of things for them. Finding good music, that's where it actually needed to cut. But because the transcription didn't capture that it just thought it was nothing, but removed kind of half of it. So, and so on and so forth. You can see that you could go through and actually just copy, accept all its edits, or you could go through one at a time and see what it is that it actually told you that it wanted to edit. In a lot of ways, that to me is slower than just listening through and just going, okay, just cut. That's, you don't want to ruin the pace. You don't want to ruin the conversational flow. And sometimes the edit for clarity does do that. If you just accept everything it says to do, it can overdo it. And so that's just something I want you to be aware of when you're using that tool, that you can't just click on a thing and then be like, sweet, my work here is done. No, it absolutely isn't. You still need to go back and listen to it because there are a lot of things that it doesn't quite get right. So in the interest of this, I'm going to just discard all edits because I will go back and actually edit that in the way that I want it to be edited and sound. There's quite a conversational tone in this audio, and so it doesn't really make sense for me to tighten up and edit for clarity, especially because I know I'm a good speaker. I won't need to spend a lot of time in that edit phase there. But there are other things you can do, like remove retakes. You can shorten word gaps. That can be very handy for people that have these big, long pauses while they're looking at a script or they're thinking about what they're going to say next and there's like a big pause. You can shorten your word gaps and that can be really good. And you can give it any more than 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second, and you can shorten them to 1 second, So there's some tools that you could potentially use there. It's found only one long kind of gap there over 3 seconds in this video, and I don't need to shorten in there. The other thing that you can do is add chapters. Chapters can be useful. I don't really use them, but you can click on that and add chapters, and then it will divide into chapters and add markers. So you can see there we've got an introduction, we've got the importance of video content, challenges in finding good music, music libraries, etc., etc. You can add to the script and you can add timestamps as well. So if we click on that, we could do that, and then there's the timestamps, and then we can go done. And it's got the chapters, but they're not in here. If we go to add chapters and we go number auto submit, and then we go to add to script, then you'll see there in the actual script itself, final thoughts and discount code, advantages of audio socket, personal experience. So it's put those chapters in there as well. And the timestamps, again, are there, and you can copy those and you could put them into YouTube or something. So again, not super helpful for an audio only thing, but I wanted to step you through that stuff. Studio sound we won't go through in this particular video because it is a separate thing that won't really work with this audio because the audio is too good. So I will do a separate video that has terrible audio so that you can see how you can potentially clean that up. All right, now that's really for an audio only situation. They're really the tools that you could potentially use. And some other tools down here are in your copywriting and just brainstorming and things down the bottom here. But for right now, for editing, this is where we're at. So you could have potentially edited for clarity. You could have removed filler words. You could have removed retakes, and you could have shortened your word gaps. Then you're at a point where you can go back and listen through and decide what else you want to cut. So if we go and we zoom in, you can see there's a little bit at the beginning here that needs to be cut because this is just dead space that we don't need. So you put your cursor over it and you just press S, okay? And then you can just click on that bit now, which is the dead bit, and you just hit delete. Okay, you don't need that bit. And then you just start listening through, and I'm going to show you some things that I would do in the actual editing phase. I'll do a little bit of that, and then I'll show you the EQ and compression tools as well. If you're trying to start a business, you can see there, so that was a double take of the start. So again, we don't need any of that. We're going to press S, click on the dead bit, delete. If you're trying to start a business or you have a business already, you are building your personal brand, you are posting on social media, you are creating content, okay? You need videos now, right? I mean, it's kind of unavoidable. You want to be able to post stuff on social media. So you could probably get rid of that okay. And there's two ways you could do it. If you double click here, it will remove the whole okay like this. And then it will leave you with in content. You need... It's probably too big of a gap if I remove the okay. So then I can actually just put my cursor here and then drag it and it will shorten the gap. Creating content, you need videos now, right? I mean, it's kind of unavoidable. You want to be able to post stuff on social media. You want to be able to draw people in to the thing that it is that you provide, whether it's a product or a service, or maybe you're just an influencer. I shouldn't say just, influencing is still a job. But all of this requires that you create videos So then you could see here as well, would you remove that big, long breath? Job. But all of this, maybe you would. So if we then go S here and then we get rid of the as well, maybe we start it with the but. The only thing you do is just try it. It might be too much of a rush to get from one to the other, but let's have a listen. Is still a job, but all of this requires, it's a little bit too quick, is still a job, but all of this, and we need to make sure we're all the way up here, is still a job, but all of this requires, and maybe I'll try getting rid of that is. So again, SS remove. Influencing is still a job, but all of this requires, and then there's this, what I didn't quite say require, so I would go S here, and I'm going to remove this. The job, but all of this requires that it might not quite work. But all of this requires that might be too quick. But all of this requires that you create videos a lot of the time. And that is something that we do here at Bamby Media. We create video snippets for... Now, something else that you can do along the way if you want, see how it says Bay Media, which is not the name of my business. You can double click on that and you can go correct and you can change it to the actual name. Correct. Easy. Do here at Bamby Media, we create video snippets for our clients to go. And you can see it's actually amended it here now below at Bamby Media. At Bamby Media, we create video snippets for our clients to go with the podcast episode. So it's like a full-on. So that's kind of the way you edit, right? So you go along, you listen, and then you just press S, hovering over the bit that you want to kind of delete, and then you just highlight it and you delete it. Or you don't do that and you just grab this whole section and you just hit delete and it will delete it there. Keeping in mind that anytime you use the transcript to edit, you absolutely need to go back and check that it hasn't cut too much or too little. So if we do this, Bamby Media, so it's like a full-on repurposing pack. So that's kind of a weird cut now, right? So then maybe I'd have to go in closer and then Bamby Media, it's like a full-on repurposing that might be more in line. I mean, I wouldn't want to cut that whole section anyway, but that gives you an idea. So you can either use the transcript and just cut like you would a document, or you can use the timeline, or you can do a bit of both, which sometimes we do a bit of both. We're all audio editors here that are used to working with much more advanced tools than this from an audio and video perspective. So for us to use the timeline, it feels more comfortable because we're used to editing with the timeline. For people that have never edited anything in their life, they'll look at a doc and they'll be like, cool, I can understand how to delete from a transcript much more than I can understand what the hell I'm doing down in a timeline, So it just depends on where you're actually at with what you feel comfortable with doing. But I would say try to get comfortable with the waveform because you can get a lot tighter, a lot cleaner with the edit when it is in the actual waveform that you're editing within. Okay, so let's say you go along and you start editing. Now, as I said, you can actually increase the speed of that. So let's say I'm at 1.5 speed, which you'll see is quite fast. We create video snippets for our clients to go with the podcast episode. So it's like a full-on repurposing package. See how if it goes that fast, it starts to sound a bit weird, right? So you're not going to be able to hear the little intricacies in an edit at that speed. So it only makes sense for you to edit at that speed if you are used to the client or your voice, or you've done a lot of editing before in this, like for this person, then you could speed it up. You know what you're doing there, then you could speed it up. But if you're a newbie, don't do this because you will make a lot of mistakes and it will be diabolical. The next thing that I want to show you, we're just going to assume, I've edited or I'm editing. I want to go into the properties. So we click on the waveform itself. We go to properties. And then this is where I was talking about before with the actual audio effects. We're going to add a few things in here. We're going to go EQ and we're going to go compression. The EQ is what helps you get the best possible sound out of the audio that has been recorded. EQ is something that takes a long time to get right, and it also depends on the headphones or the speakers or whatever you're using to actually do the EQing itself, because there's a lot of different factors that go into what makes something sound good and whether you can actually hear the sounds that you need to be able to hear using the tools that you have, like headphones or your speakers. I have very high quality headphones and I have very high quality speakers in this studio. Not everybody, and I would say most people, don't have those things. So anything that you do from an EQ perspective, if you're just using little earbuds or your Apple AirPods or whatever, or your laptop speakers, you're not really going to be able to hear the intricacies properly with that. So if you're really getting into editing, I would say get a pair of good quality headphones, and I will link a pair of good quality ones. They're normally for Aussie dollars. I wouldn't really go any less than $300 in Aussie. And that normally gets you to a pretty good range of headphones there. I don't really recommend just using speakers because, again, unless your room is treated very well, as in audio treatment, you won't be able to hear properly through the speakers either, the intricacies of what you really need to hear. So EQ just means that I want to be able to make this sound sparkly. It needs to sound even more professional. This is kind of where, my almost 20 years worth of experience working in audio means that I have a distinct advantage over you doing it for the first time. And that's okay. As I said, like, you're going to get it wrong to begin with, and it's just something you kind of trial and error, and that's okay. So if we click on the EQ, I'm using a very nice microphone. There's not a lot that I would actually really change in this situation. But we've got, and this might be daunting to you as well, but this is an EQ, a parametric EQ. We've got 5 different kind of dots here that you can see. They are all set at different frequencies: 50, 200, 800, 3200, and then 12,800 hertz. You will play in the zone where you feel most comfortable, and you can move these things around and you can turn them on and off too. If you're like, I don't need this many buttons here, I don't need these many numbers. We want to highlight the frequencies that are really nice, and we want to diminish the frequencies that sound a bit bad. So as I'm listening to this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to notch in, meaning I'm going to increase to 15 so that when I bring this up, it's a notch. I'm not going to give you a full EQ lesson here, but it just basically means that you're not grabbing as many frequencies at once with a notch. If it's at 2, you're grabbing a lot of frequencies in, and that's not necessarily what you want to do, because you're just trying to find the bad frequencies and highlight the good ones. And there's not normally a heap of bad ones and a heap of good ones. There's just a small amount that you're trying to work within. So if we listen now, I'm going to bring some frequencies up, and you might hear them start to sound a bit crunchy, like, ugh, this doesn't sound good. That's something we want to pull out. Okay, so let's go. It's that you create videos a lot of the time, and that is something that we do here at Bamby Media. We create video snippets for our clients to go with the podcast episodes. So see how it was like it's quite boomy down there, and we don't want boomy. We want nice bassy sounds, tones, but we don't want a boom. So I've removed that sound by highlighting it first, making sure I found the one that isn't what I want, and then I've reduced it. I haven't dragged it all the way out. I still want a little bit of it, but I have removed a lot of it. Now we're going to go, and I'll probably find something up in these higher end frequencies as well that I don't like. That you create videos a lot of the time, and that is something that we do here at Bamby Media. We create video snippets for our clients to go with the podcast episode. So it's like a full-on repurposing package for a lot of clients where they record the audio and the video, and then we spurt out just a bunch of things for them. Finding good music for those videos can be a real pain in the ass. It can be really hard to find music that isn't lame, that other people aren't using all over the place, that isn't trending audio? I mean, I know everyone. Okay, so now you can see I removed 2 frequencies and I actually added a little bit. I didn't notch it. I'm just giving it a little bit of extra flavor around here, around the 500 hertz. Not much, just a little bit. Because a lot of the time with EQing, what you find is that when you remove frequencies, sometimes you need to add something else in to kind of make it not bland and not sound bad. The other thing that people use all the time, so let's say I'm happy with that now, and you may hear it talked about, is the high pass filter. So high pass, and I'm just going to show you now with it just applied. You create videos a lot of the time, and that is something that we do here at Bamby Media. We create video snippets for our clients to go with the podcast episode. So it's like a full-on repurposing package for a lot of clients. Okay, and we're actually just going to go low pass filter as well. Clients where they record the audio and the video, and then we spread out with a bunch of things for them. Finding good music for those videos can be a real pain in the ass. It can be really hard to find music that isn't lame, that other people... Can you hear the differences with these two? So the low pass filter and the high pass filter, what the point of those are to create, like completely remove frequencies up to a point on either end of the spectrum, the frequency spectrum. So whether that's rolling off all of the bottom end or rolling off all of the top end, okay? I don't really use these in this context, because, I mean, you certainly use it a lot in music production, but not so much in audio production, depending on the kind of room that you're in. Sometimes if you have like a air conditioner that's humming, and you got this drone all the way through, then you can actually use a high pass filter to reduce that. So if I put that back in, people aren't using all over the place, that isn't trending audio. I know everyone goes on about how good it is to use trending audio, because then your video is featured because it's trending and then everyone else is using it, and blah, blah, blah. Anything below 80 hertz pretty much is gone, right? So it's like created this area below where it's all gone. So sometimes that is actually sound that people don't realize is there and annoying them until you use one of these tools to then put it on and then go, oh, actually that's just made that sound a lot cleaner. So depending on what you have in your audio will depend on whether you need to use a high pass or low pass filter. For me, for right now, I'm not going to use it and I will remove it. That's EQ. So removing frequencies that, as you saw, I brought them up and they were like, oh God, this sounds terrible. You want to remove those. And then with the compression, now if we move on to that, the compression basically means that anything that is too loud or too soft will get normalized into a threshold that you set, okay? The compression settings that I like to use are a threshold that's pretty simple, -13, so I don't want to overdo it. My ratio is set to 3:1. My attack and this all stuff, this is all fine. I don't like to overcompress. I hear so much overcompression and it just drives me up the wall because it really kills good quality audio. So I don't like to play with compression too much. And also in Descript, in the export phase, it adds like a normalizing anyway, which also compresses to get it to a certain volume, like a amount of LUFS. And so compressing here and then having Descript compress on the way out as well, it's a lot of stuff. So you definitely want to minimize that. The thing I want to say about that is as well, and just feel free to use those kind of thresholds that I've mentioned there. You're not going to overcompress with that. If you see here, you can actually put things in here. So light volume boost, heavy volume boost. I've actually found these to just be too much most of the time. So even the light volume boost, that's set at -20 at a 5:1 ratio. And like, okay, I'll show you, requires that you create videos a lot of the time. And that is something that we do. You create videos a lot of the time. And that is something that we do. So that's without it. Bamby Media, and then with it, create video snippets for our clients to go with the podcast
now it's starting to go yellow.
It's like a full-on repurposing package for a lot of clients where they... So now it's yellow and red, even though it's saying it's a light volume boost. That is too much compression already. And it also makes me sound weird, like it's not quite right. And so there are other things here that there's a lot of these things in this. I was like, when the hell would you actually use this? There's so few instances that you would use most of these things. So I'm just going to go default and then go minus 13. And now if we look at it, requires that you create videos a lot of the time. And that is something that we do here at Bamby Media. We create video snippets for our clients to go with the podcast. And it's just sitting really nice level, kind of in the middle there. It's not yellow, it's not red, and it's just a little bit of compression. That is literally all you need. Do not overdo compression because it will ruin your audio. I promise you it will. Okay, so that's the compression and the EQ. We've gone through the editing, simply how to do it using just the AI, like simple tools here, the little things that you can do to potentially increase the speed at which you're able to edit there. We've gone through how to edit using the transcript and the timeline, some shortcut keys, meaning the main one just being S. Just use S for audio editing. It's very simple and easy to do. Or highlight, drag, delete. And we've gone through, the EQ and compression. It's a very simple process here for audio editing, not too much that you need to do, but that is how you do it. Just set up your system the way you want it to be set up. Know that we will go into how to put other layers in, music and things in other videos. But for right now, I hope I've given you a lot to think about here as to how you can edit, how you can lay out your session, what it can look like, how you can get things to sound, and you can feel a little bit more confident in your editing journey. As I mentioned at the top of this, if you want a full Learn Descript course that gets updated all the time as new things happen in Descript, I would suggest jumping into the Learn Descript course that will be in the description of this video. Thanks for joining me. My name's Brianna, and I hope you've had a great time.